All right. So welcome, folks, to the SIG Autoscaling weekly meeting on the 28th of July, 2025. We have two items on the agenda. Uh, First one, Elmiko. Want to take it away?
Yeah. So I've been looking at a bug that we've been seeing in the cluster API provider, and it's caused me to kind of look at some of the code in the, like the mixed node info processor and the kind of scale up planning and everything. And so like the problem that we saw was that, or that we are seeing, is that in situations where Cluster API uses Kubernetes objects to represent infrastructure. So when we have to pass capacity information, we use like, we have our scale from zero information we put onto the actual Kubernetes manifest. But when that doesn't exist, it means that our provider can't create template node info for a template, right? And so we had a situation where we had a node group and we had cordoned all the nodes in the node group. And we had expected the autoscaler would see the nodes there and it would use one of them as a template to make new nodes. So then we look and we see that, okay, in the first link that I put there in the mixed node info processor, there is a section of the code that should ignore whether a node is unscheduled and it tries to scrub the taints off of it. And this is like if it can't find a good node that's schedulable, and if it can't find a template node info, then it drops down and tries to find a node that is unschedulable and it tries to sanitize it to see if it could use that as a node template. The problem is the second link that I have there is where we create the ready nodes that get passed into that mixed node info processor. And if we have a node that's marked as unschedulable, we don't even put it on the list of ready nodes that goes into that processor. So I'm trying to understand what the intention of the autoscaler here is. Like, should the autoscaler be including unready nodes on the list that go into that mixed node info processor so that it could drop down to the last, set of logic and be able to use an unschedulable node as a template? Or have I missed something in the logic, I guess?
Yeah,
That's kind
like the fallback logic is there for a reason. So if it's not getting the unready nodes, it seems like a bug, but I'm not familiar with that last bit of the logic. We usually don't reach there.
of
As
right.
for why we wouldn't normally want unschedulable or tainted nodes to be picked up as templates is they don't necessarily have all of the daemon set pods.
Right.
We've had a bug recently where CA that was just fixed recently where CA would pick up the nodes with to be scaled down taint that were undergoing drain, and then it essentially saw fewer daemons than there were in reality if it picked it at the right time. So this is, I think, the reason why we want to avoid this in general. And but as a fallback, I was under the impression that this logic gets the unready nodes and it could go off of them if needed. There's a lot of checks in there. Okay,
Right.
I will need to look into the code, but I think we can follow up later in the week, right?
Yeah. Would it be helpful if I wrote this up as an issue then and I can put all the
Yes,
links to the code and
yes,
everything? Okay.
that would be great.
Cool. I probably won't get it done today, but tomorrow or Wednesday, I'll make an issue for this.
Yeah, like the fallback behavior definitely makes sense. At like maybe you want to make it opt-in if it would like actually like in order not to break
Right.
just cluster silently when they upgrade if it didn't work before and now we make it work, right?
Right.
Because it could lead to very subtle bugs, but that's
Yeah,
the
totally.
like, worst case scenario. We'll add a flag or something, and if not, it
Right.
should just
And
be.
that's what I'm worried about here, right? Is that when you look at the run once loop, where we acquire the ready nodes, we filter out unschedulable nodes there. So it's only ready nodes. But then we pass that into the process function of the mixed node info. And yeah, like in the process function, there's three blocks. The first block it tries to find a node that it can use, right? The second block, it tries to get the template node inflow. And the third block is the emergency one, right? Where it
I
tries to,
see, I see. So it probably got broken somewhere along the way because I think almost every other cloud provider would never fall back below the template node info part, right?
exactly,
This
exactly. And
is
Cluster
okay.
API, in this one situation, Cluster API falls to the bottom, right?
Yeah, it
And but
might be that logic that you have just uncovered. Yeah.
right. Okay, I'll make an issue and explain all this, and then we can have a
Mhm.
better discussion on the issue. Appreciate
Thank
it,
you.
Kuba. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments to that? Anyone else? Okay. If not, let's move on. Muhammad, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. I have two issues. First is I asked about releasing a new version of 1.31. We pulled some changes in this branch, and this was in March, and it is important for us, these changes. And there has been a release for 1.30 and 1.33, but not 1.31.
Jack, are you on the call? I know you're handling this round of patch
Yes,
releases.
there is. Thank you for your patience, Mohammed. There is a PR in the queue to do the last pre-step for 131 and 132. So I'll bug you again, Kuba, to get
Yeah,
that reviewed.
I took a look over all of the PRs, but I might have missed some. So in any case, it should be done soon, right? Because it's just promoting the images that were already tested, if I remember correctly, right?
Well, 131 and 132 have Go mod, have dependency updates
Ah, so that
in the
was
PR queue.
something I saw. Okay, okay, okay. So we're like,
Another thing I'll say is that I've been doing this all the hard way, sort of intentionally to get myself up to speed on the current process, and we will automate this in the future. I'm quite certain of that, and so these will be much more easy to roll out. But it'll be another couple of months before that's fully fleshed out. But I would imagine we can discuss this in the maintainer community. But doing these patch releases regularly, even weekly, should be fairly easy once we get automation going.
Okay. The other issue is when we usually in Elastic, we do fault injection exercises. So we do network partitioning and we see how cluster autoscaler behaves and things like that. And we are running cluster autoscaler in 2 pods with leader election configuration. And we noticed that when there is a disruption, network disruption that affects the cluster autoscaler pod, the leader one, it loses leadership, then it acquires it again. It doesn't allow the other one, the other undisrupted pod, to easily capture the lock. And the reason for this behavior is that when it loses leadership, it calls klog.fatal. Fatal does not exit. It is documented in guidelines of SIG instrumentation not to use fatal. And I think this has changed to make the fatal implementation in order to, I don't know, push people away from it. Or there was a long discussion in multiple groups around this. But long story short, fatal is not recommended to be used. Fatal, klog.fatal does not exit, although its documentation says that it will call os.exit. No, current version, the latest version does not. And this is the reason for this. So I submitted a pull request. There are 2 ways around this. Either accept klog.fatal and then do exit as recommended in the guidelines, or do klog.error. Fatal will just log with the fatal severity. It will not exit. Error will log with error severity. Maybe using error is less misleading or less confusing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is not the only place we will need to change then. Thanks for raising this. Like we have a couple of these Klog fatal calls in the code during flag parsing for sure. This is yeah.
Are we sure
Okay.
that get that fatal.f or fatal f doesn't exit? The documentation of the method suggests it does exit.
Yes, the documentation suggests so, but I added a deep dive into the current version of the code. It doesn't. It it boils down to printing without exiting.
Yeah, I had a quick look. I pasted a link in the Zoom chat. It just logs. It doesn't exit.
I see. So
It for
who wants
sure
to
used
volunteer to go update the Klog documentation or file a bug in the Klog project? We should fix that.
Yeah, it definitely used to exit before. I have seen that happen in practice. So this must be a recent change. We can for sure fix it. Changing Klog is probably not straightforward or quick. So
Yeah, for sure.
I'm
Just in the follow-up.
all in favor of fixing it for now.
Also, I'd like to say that other projects like Cube Scheduler does the thing that I did, the exact behavior. And this is the behavior that is documented in the guidelines, like
Okay.
a call error and then call exit,
Okay.
flush and exit. Sorry.
In that case, we don't need to migrate back if it's a standard practice.
Yes.
would
I
then-
made the pull request clearer. I added the link to the guidelines and I added explanation for this.
I'll have a very busy next 2 weeks. Is there anybody else on the call who could review?
I can definitely take that. Yeah, I've already started reviewing it.
Perfect. Thank you, Jack.
Thanks.
Okay. Do we have? I think that's all for this one. Nothing else got added to the agenda. Do we have anything else from the call? Any issues? Any questions? Yeah, we have one. Almiko?
So this was something that came up in the cluster API community last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. We noticed a regression in our autoscaler tests, for some behavior that we had in the cluster API provider. But it also brought up a question that I think we don't have to answer now, but I wanted to suggest it here. The cluster API community is curious if there might be a way that we could send our CI reporting back to SIG Autoscaling somehow, because we're running like a suite on the autoscaler. And I know Jack is looking into this and everything, and so maybe I could follow up with him at some time. But I think if there were a way for us to somehow pass back CI information that we get from the cluster autoscaler, that would be amazing, because we do a lot of testing, and we could at least, we have some basic scaling tests and whatnot.
Where do these tests live?
Currently, they live in the cluster API repository.
I think it should be doable because our current GCE tests live in KK and they are plumbable. We do want to migrate them to our repository. These should probably stay in that one, but it would be great, especially for release qualification. I don't know what exactly set of tests you run, Jack, but it's all manual for now, and it would be great to Jack's automating all of that as far as I know. So it would be great as much signal as we can get, as long as they're stable. Sounds great. Jack?
Yeah, I've automated the basic scale up and scale down that I think folks do before release well, I haven't automated it yet, but I feel like I have a fairly decent process for using the existing Azure end-to-end test, which does scale out and scale in, scale up, scale down. And then linking that to the branch at the appropriate commit. And so maintainers can confidently give a thumbs up before we release something out. Mike, about what you're doing in CAPI, would it be sort of easy enough to just add the same exact test to cluster autoscaler pre-submit configuration? So however you're doing the order of operations now, or are you building cluster autoscaler from bits in your test?
That is a good question. I think upstream might actually use images that are released. I don't think they build it, but I'll have to do a little more research there.
Cool, but it shouldn't. We can just sort of invert. I'm sure that we essentially copy the existing test configuration over, but we invert the serial order a little bit. So if, for example, if now you're checking out both the CA repo and the CAPI repo and maybe a provider repo to actually run the info, are you doing this on Quark or CubeMark?
I think they're not using KubeMark. I think they're using the Quark provider. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we can just, for example, wire it up in such a way where we can invoke it from a cluster autoscaler PR so that, or we can wire it up to be a periodic so we can get that signal in a place that's just more conspicuous for cluster autoscaler maintainers.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, happy to follow up on this, and I'll do a little research into the cluster the cluster API side and just see how it's set up there and everything.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll let you know.
Uh,
I'll give you a reference to how the Azure test is set up, and you can sort of see the bits.
One more question for me then maybe. Did you end up root causing the regression, or is that still in progress?
The one that I was just talking about earlier.
Oh, it was the same one.
No, we actually found a different regression. It was based on scale from 0. We found a different, like, there's like a really weird bug. Like I said before, because Cluster API uses Kubernetes objects for its node groups, it's always talking to the API server. And we had a user who suggested an update. We were using the update method in one place to update the cluster autoscaler records. And this user came by and suggested we use patch instead
And
for
conflicts.
efficiency, right?
Yeah.
It turns out though the patch is serializing one of the values wrong, and so like we can't go to 0 anymore because it's removing the 0. So yeah, we're trying to fix that now. But we noticed
Okay.
it in our automated testing, and the cluster API maintainers, they were wondering, hey, since we run these autoscaler tests all the time, could we provide signal back to the autoscaler somehow?
Yeah. This could have easily been a CA core regression with the
Right.
same symptoms probably. So yeah, definitely.
Right, exactly. Because we introduced this change right before 1.33 got released. So yeah, now we've got this error that's in there for 1.33 and we need to fix it and everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Thanks. I'll follow up with Jack and everything offline.
Thanks. Anything else, folks? Anybody?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I guess, is there any plans to discuss the updates to the SIG Autoscaling working group meetings? The proposal by that Jonathan had made, I
Yes,
think last month.
this is the right place. Do you have any comments? Any blockers?
No blockers. I guess in terms of like just I guess having I guess since today is the lazy consensus day, it was just more of trying to get a sense of when we would have the discussion, if we would want to have the discussion now or maybe in the next working group meeting once people have had time to digest the data.
Yeah, exactly the latter one. So Jonathan just passed the data to us. He's going out of office for 3 weeks, so he passed all of the data, and I probably won't have time to work on it this week. I'll try to find somebody else who can. If not, we can revisit this next week. But basically, the data is there. We just need to, and there are some clear winners, I think. We just need to look at it and communicate.
Sounds great.
I
Thank
think
you.
I think the winning options are Wednesday and Thursday around 8 a.m. Pacific.
Yes, that's what I'm aware of as well. Yeah, cool. I just wanted to make sure. I just wanted to understand what the plans were around that. But yeah,
Yep, I'll try to communicate it by next week, but that probably won't go into effect next week. So, like next week, it's definitely the same time as usually, and hopefully, I'll communicate or somebody from the leads group will communicate a new time going after that.
sounds great. Thank you.
right.
Just a comment on a previous point. Klog.fatal does exit with code 255. It's not in the fatal function. It happens elsewhere in the code. So
Yeah,
there's no need
that's
for us to talk to whoever owns that to get it fixed.
right. Does that? So, Mohammed, have you seen it actually like not dying, or is it?
It's like I've seen it acquiring the lock and leaving it, acquiring the lock and leaving it multiple times.
Interesting. Maybe you're looking, Adrian, at a different Klog version somehow, or maybe.
That's a good point. I think I'm on latest.
In any case, I think we can follow up on the PR, right?
And Klog.fatal isn't the suggested way isn't the just suggested function to use. So I think it makes sense to move off it anyway.
Yeah. So I think
But
like
it's
the action item is the same anyway. Let's just continue on the PR.
follow up with me, Adrian. It's a good call because Mohammed, there might be something else wrong. For example, might be even across life cycle.
Yeah, maybe we migrate to another
Maybe
way and
maybe
does
the
the
leader
same, right?
election is being held somehow.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
so
check
for
again.
example, I've definitely seen problems with leader election failover in GKE, and this was due to misconfigured parameters on the like leader election log. It was basically the timeout was too short for it to, like, the leader would restart so quickly that it would
Yeah, that's
still
what I'm thinking.
pick up the log. That is what happened in GKE for sure.
Okay, I'll double check again. Thank you.
Yeah, and honestly, that might be desired. Like that might be that way on purpose because the idea you could imagine a environment in which you only want to switch leaders if you have some demonstrated sort of
Yeah,
terminal event on the underlying infrastructure. But if it restarts in like under 500 milliseconds or something like that, that might suggest that it was a blip and you want to retain leader election there for some reason. Or you want to maintain leadership.
The point is that I think that I saw in the logs that this message exists like lost leader. So I think that it should be the final log message that I see in the logs. So I'm going to check again.
I think it logs that it lost leader anytime it exits. It's like the last log line of the main function. So, but then it could restart, pick it back up. But okay, let's figure it out on the PR.
Thank you.
Any more topics? Still have 5 minutes. A lot of discussion today. I don't think so. Okay. In this case, thanks all for attending and see you all next week.
Bye. Thank you.